A warm welcome back to your latest industry recap. An A321neo change has been confirmed, and it is a bit of an episode heavily leaning on developments at Turkish Airlines. Want to begin with aircraft grounding woes. The Pratt & Whitney engine obstacles are still impacting the A320neo family at Turkish Airlines, and now we have some fresh developments on how this is tracking alongside what the next 12 to 18 months are going to look like. While the major international airline has been coordinating closely with the engine manufacturer to try and resolve the issue I speak of, it is still encountering roadblocks. The company is saying that for the moment, a sizable number of its A320neo planes remain on the ground, around 40 planes parked. The confirmation arrived during the airline's most recent third quarter earnings call, which stated that 40 of the 100 or so GTF-powered neo planes are out of service, with the geared turbofan engine the primary focus. Seeing now nearly half of the neo fleet grounded is obviously far from ideal. You don't need me to tell you that again, but the broader industry continues to also feel the same, as pressures just aren't letting up at a required rate. Turkish Airlines forecasts, however, that the groundings will not necessarily improve, but actually rather worsen over time. The figure they expect is to reach around the 50 planes parked mark for the A320neo family, equipped with the GTF engine at any given point. Once Turkish Airlines hits this 50 aircraft mark, which is considered to be the peak, it does believe things will gradually start to improve, with the figure dropping ever so slightly then throughout 2026 and onwards. This would free up more aircraft on the network. Now, for companies such as Turkish Airlines, while there may be ever slightly improvements in the overall number of units on the ground, it doesn't just eradicate the problem. It still is going to remain a concern for a prolonged period, and something that they need to keep in mind. Improvement at Turkish Airlines won't just come down to the ungrounding of existing Pratt & Whitney powered aircraft. It is of the belief that solving the woes is more about the new delivery of aircraft, which, don't get me wrong, have their own issues in itself, but that is slowly also improving with supply chains getting better. Turkish Airlines has already committed heavily to the next generation of aircraft. It has a pretty healthy backlog, and it expects delivery of many new planes over time, some of these with healthy GTF engines, allowing the aircraft to keep crew and aircraft utilization rates up, even with so many planes on the ground. Over to the next story, where mass change is underway at Wizz Air, with the airline confirming it'll delay taking delivery of new Airbus aircraft. Delays will affect 88 single-aisle aircraft that were ordered and expected from 2020, the airline now preparing to only begin taking delivery of these aircraft in fiscal 2033. The delayed delivery follows a year of turbulence, which has culminated in the necessary overhaul of the airline's business, from deliveries to order changes. Wizz Air is taking the time to reaffirm its stance that streamlining its operations and future backlog will take place as it shifts away from the A321XLR, instead favouring the base model of the A321neo. The agreement to convert some of the aircraft were previously announced, but the company is now reaffirming this stance on its own accord and highlighting that these planes limit the airline's seat capacity, which, while may be perceived as a downside by that comment in itself, will ultimately help them limit overall costs, which is exactly what they're striving for. The renewal of the Wizz Air business is expected to reach its final form by the end of the decade, when the company will fully transition to a sole reliance on the next generation A320neo family. What this move does is ensure that sustainability can be attained and a better financial position across the long term will happen. Wizz Air has long battled pressures this year, but even in the last 2 to 3. Certainly, the lack of deliveries has been a persistent obstacle, but also one of the biggest, and shock horror, has been the Pratt & Whitney engine crisis affecting its A320neo fleet. At the end of June this year, the budget carrier confirmed a very similar figure to what is seen over at Turkish Airlines, with 41 of the planes on the ground temporarily, with inspections forced and maintenance. The window for this maintenance, however, has ballooned out, Wizz Air saying that it's a 300-day period at best for engine turnarounds, which means these planes are spending way longer than intended on the ground, affecting their own operation. And over to the final story, where Turkish Airlines has published its financial results for the third quarter of 2025, seeing record-breaking figures. The airline confirming that obviously despite those aircraft-related issues I have been talking about and ongoing economic uncertainty, the quarter was a strong one. Turkish Airlines carrying 27.2 million passengers. The staggering feat represents the highest amount in the third quarter in company history and shows that over the last 18 quarters, the airline has only continued to grow in a positive manner. With Turkish Airlines keen to elevate its flying into key markets around the world, the positivity among passengers, despite some evident business struggles, is a sign of hopefully what's to come. What is to come includes the prospect and the hopeful reaching of 800 planes in the fleet by 2033. It is one that aligns with the company's intent to become one of the largest carriers in the world, and to take inspiration from neighbouring airlines in the Middle East, who certainly enjoyed success in the 2000s. As some airlines still recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the flag carrier of Turkey has grown by 8.2% in the last 12 months. That isn't even the most impressive figure. It's when you look at passenger figures that are now 43% above pre-pandemic levels. Record-breaking profits were also achieved, with USD 1.1 billion reported across the period, alongside other solid performance in many other metrics. The quarter saw revenues rise 4.9% to USD 7 billion. These figures all driven by some really strong passenger operations, which accounted for a large portion of the business. That'll conclude today's industry recap. Thanks for your support. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you next time.
And we'll fly.